Alrighty. Yeah, time for inheritance. You know, there's a short list of episodes of TNG that I would personally pretend didn't exist, and this is one of them. Now, on the surface, it seems like a good episode, but it raises more questions than it answers and opens a giant can of worms. One of which is the sort of thing that would actually be a fun idea to have as a plot device, honestly. It's just that the fact that it exists is a gigantic can of worms. Anyways, so what happens in Inheritance? The Enterprise gets called to an alien planet in order to help them with a geological disaster. Yeah, that's the simplest way I can think of to explain it. And then they realize that Data's mother is one of the geologists on the planet that they need to assist with the geological disaster. That is one of those things where it's just like, oh, well, isn't this amazingly convenient? But, yeah. That's, well, I mean, to be honest, like the Enterprise had no real reason to go to this system, anyways. And realistically, interesting coincidences like this, they're kind of a staple in writing because of the fact that the reality is that any reason the Enterprise had ever had to go to Atria would have resulted in Data and his mother meeting, probably, unless she hides from him, and stuff, you know? So, the Data meeting his mother thing was kind of inevitable, but the whole, like, planetary core slowly freezing thing was just, why? Anyway, though, to be honest, if I was going to do a plot like this, and I wouldn't, I honestly don't like Soong type androids because of the fact that TNG went super, super hard in the paint on trying to make them super, super unique and overly special, and ignored the fact that TOS had several different kinds of androids in the original series. Anyway, though, moving on from that. So, let's go with the geological disaster, because the other one has more interesting stuff. Anyway, Atrea IV. It's actually a rather boring Class M planet, honestly. I mean, the biosphere looks incredibly similar to Earth. Then you have the fact that there is a Federation member race living on it. This does not actually get brought up in the episode, but there's nothing in the episode that conflicts with the idea that it's a Federation member world, and the Star Charts book decided that it was a Federation member, so hey, whatever. Close enough to canon. The Atreans are, like I said, it's just a generic Federation member race. The planet itself. So, they don't really explain why it is that the molten core is slowly solidifying. That's not something that's normal, but it is, and they're estimating that they have like 12 days or something before the planet will become unlivable by the fact that the core is freezing. Okay. Sure, whatever. Anyways, it takes most of the episode, and this is something that at the beginning of the episode seems like it's ostensibly the A-plot. It's not. It's just the excuse for a story to happen, really. And of course, people figure out something science detect in order to make the core reliquefy. And everything is done, and they conclude that after this one treatment of their science, the tech, that the core will remain adequately molten for at least a few more centuries. At which point they'll have to do it again, unless they figure out why the heck the core was cooling in the first place. Like seriously, why? The episode doesn't bother with that. Anyway, so ferroplasmic infusion. Basically, you just take you drill a hole into the planet's core, and you pour plasma into it. That's it. It's one of those things where it actually sounds plausible from a real world standpoint, and not just from sci-fi physics standpoints. Except anyone who has studied geology knows that if you were to drill like that, you would create massive seismic instability at the point where you drill the hole. Whatever. Anyway, though. Again, though, is that the whole thing is like, why is the planet's core suddenly started to cool? We don't know, quite frankly, and the episode doesn't attempt to address that. So, if there is some sort of an interesting, novel, unusual reason, maybe it's not going to last as long as they think it will. Because again, having a planet's core just suddenly start to cool isn't normal. Whatever. Anyways, so what do Atreans look like? Here we have examples of Atreans. This is not an episode where the alien of the week is actually a major part of the episode because, as I mentioned before, the plasma infusion into the planetary core is a B plot. It's like the excuse for the real A plot to happen, not an actual A plot. Now, because the fact that this is a race that a main character or major character, okay, it's Data's mother, so yeah. She has been living on this planet, so they feel obligated to talk about the planet's customs and culture and stuff, which, I mean, it's not a bad thing. Gives them a little bit more depth than most Alien of the Weeks get, but it's not much. Now, one thing I found that personally to be rather interesting is that these ears rather strongly resemble Ferengi ears. Something to ponder if I was to actually use this race. Because there's not much else to the way they look, and they're not actually stated to have any unusual abilities. They're generic humanoids with Ferengi ears, and that's it. They don't even have Ferengi foreheads, just ears. This is also one of those cases where the alien of the week is such a generic alien of the week that we don't have any information about their technology. Now, of course, there is an Atrean government, but I mean, as you can see, the article about the Atrean government is literally 2 sentences. Well, okay, 3 if you count the header here. Yeah, it exists. Anyways, now the Atreans as a race used in a Star Trek Adventures module. You could deal with that. Now, the whole like geological instability in their planet is the only thing that actually makes them interesting. But, it's something that you could play with if you wanted to. Or have a different planet, have a similar problem, and then talk to the Atreans to see what the Atreans were able to figure out about their planet's geological instability. Because, having a different planet experience a similar problem, call a subject matter expert or something, right? That is actually something that's been mentioned several times. Is that why exactly do you need a molten core for the planet? Sci-fi reasons in some cases. Anyway, moving on. So now for what was actually in practice the A plot. Data's mother, who is no longer human. Yeah. there's two main things here that are like, how about no when it comes to this? Because one, it made Soong type androids even more extra special than they would be normally, because you have Juliana Tainer as a Soong type android who not even her husband has a reason to think she isn't human. Yeah, she married one of the Atreans, a guy by the name of Tainer, and Tainer has not noticed anything about her to suggest to him that Juliana isn't human. Okay. That is where things get. That's the first part of this. Noonien Soong somehow figured out how to make an android that is capable of registering as human to a Federation transporter console to trick Geordi's visor and almost any sort of scanning device that the Federation is able to use to scan someone to determine whether or not they are human into thinking that she is human. What? Yeah. Of course, they're going to hand wave that one. They're not even going to think about talking about that one because, quite frankly, that is insane. But, yeah, they went there. Now, see, this is actually one of those things that I find to be interesting, in part because the fact that if you were to have something like, say, Borg, and have the Borg, you know, disguise themselves as normal humans and use this technology to mask their cybernetics, yeah, about that. Have fun being ganked. It is a plot device that actually does kind of sort of make sense from a sci-fi standpoint. However, this episode goes like completely off the deep end with it. Because the way that Data figures out that Juliana is in fact an android and not human is by watching her play the piano. He sees her play the same piece twice and realizes that the amount of deviation in how she played the piano was unnatural, and concludes that the unnatural lack of deviation in her playing indicates that she is in fact an android. See, Juliana is playing the piano in a way where she's not playing it perfectly, but each time she plays the same piece, she plays that piece exactly the same, with the same imperfections. Huh? Yeah, that was Data's tell that she's an android, because it's how it would come out if Data was doing it. And yeah. Thing is, the episode ends with Juliana continuing to think she's a human, and none of the Atreans knowing that she's an android, and also there's also the thing of the level of disguise that Soong came up with for this is not on par with a Terminator, where the Terminator has actual living skin. She doesn't. She has synthetic skin. If a cat was to bite her, the cat would immediately realize that she isn't human, because of the fact that her skin is not in fact flesh. Also, it's part of why I have to question how she was able to, you know, have marital relations with Tainer when, she's not human, and he somehow didn't notice the difference. Did Soong come out with some way to make her skin taste like human skin? That seems unlikely. It also seems like the sort of thing a sci-fi writer might handwave because they don't feel like writing an actual explanation. Anyways, also, that's all of that is point one. Those are things that are sci-fi concepts that fit into sci-fi things for sci-fi reasons. And the second point is also that. But it's the degree that they take it to that I personally find to be a problem, not the idea. Because, they end the episode with Juliana continuing to think she's a human after Data opened her forehead up and tinkered with her internal components. Yeah. Anyways, so point two is the synaptic scanning technique. See, Noonien Soong was able to download her mind into a computer and several days later upload that into the android body after he created the android body. See, because he hadn't built the android version of Juliana yet when she started dying, so he scanned her mind into his computer before she died, and then several days after she was dead, he finally finished building the android body. At which point, he uploaded the mind into Juliana's android body, which created a version of her that is actually a living or seemingly a living being, and has the personality and all that stuff of a living human. Also, Soong actually told Data that he thought that the real Juliana would have been equally likely to have divorced him as the fake one did, because he had managed to get her emotion circuitry to work flawlessly, and that the copy of her personality was just that good that it perfectly imitated all of her emotions after being transferred into the android body. Anyways, that's something that comes up in more than one episode, though. As you see here, the whole mind copying thing. Why do people only use that when they're transferring the consciousness to an android body? Yeah, the thing with Graves in the Skyzoid Man is another thing that's kind of interesting, because Soong wasn't the only cybernetics expert in the Federation, and he also made use of a similar technique. But here's the thing. It's entirely possible that Soong and Graves got the technique from the old ones who created the Exo III androids, because that was actually a key component of the Exo III androids, and the machinery the Federation found that was used to create the Exo III androids was not destroyed when Kirk was there. So it's entirely possible that the United Federation of Planets and their android experts learned quite a lot of things from the old ones about how to do the whole mind transfer thing. This is actually something that adding it into the lore behind Soong type androids, it's like, wait a second. So Soong type androids are really just in some ways, the technology used to make Soong type androids is actually derived from the Exo III androids. Yeah, that's an interesting connection. This is interesting, though, that the Federation was apparently unable to figure out how to actually replicate the android creation machinery used on Exo 3. But, because, like, actually, that is an interesting thing, though, is that the Exo 3 androids seemingly had less advanced synthetic brains than Data does. So it's possible that the Federation considered them to be, I guess you could say, less than human in that regard. It's hard to be certain exactly, because it's never actually stated in canon what the Federation did with the Exo 3 stuff anyways. But the fact that they used this same synaptic data transfer technique to create the Juliana android, as was used on Exo 3 to create those androids, is very, very interesting. And that's about it for this one. It's always one of those things that it's fun to look into the nitty-gritty details and things like this, because finding connections that you didn't know were there prior to studying it, hey, it's ideas that you can use when writing your own adventure. What exactly have Starfleet cyberneticists actually learned from the Exo 3 machinery? Because you know Starfleet has it. And with that, I will bid you good night.